3 heavy black trash bags hit the wooden porch boards with a sickening thud. I leaned against the railing, catching my breath. The cotton bandage taped over my IV site throbbed against my skin. I had just driven myself home from the emergency room after collapsing at work from sheer exhaustion. Brenda stood in the doorway, her arms crossed tight against her chest, entirely blocking the hall. Her cruelty was calculated. Dripping with a desperation I recognized immediately, Travis had just bankrupted his fake cryptocurrency business, and Crystal was threatening to move out of state with Brenda's unborn grandchild unless Brenda funded their luxury lifestyle. Terrified of losing her golden child, my mother made her choice. She sneered, kicking the nearest bag toward my boots. "Crystal needs your bedroom for the nursery," she said, her voice entirely devoid of warmth. "You are strong. You will survive on your own." Over Brenda's shoulder, Crystal kept scrolling on her phone. She never even lifted her head to look at me. The heavy oak door slammed shut. The deadbolt clicked. I swallowed the massive lump in my throat and stared at the brass numbers on the door. Brenda thought I was an infinite cash machine who would just absorb the pain, cry in the car, and figure out a way to keep paying their bills. She thought my silence was weakness. She forgot I am a real estate paralegal, and I hold the keys to my own financial vaults. I grabbed the trash bags, threw them into the trunk of my car, and drove through the pouring rain to a cheap motel off the interstate. Sitting on the edge of a sagging mattress, I opened my laptop. The screen illuminated the dark room. I logged into my personal banking portal. For 3 years, I had quietly kept that family afloat, patching their financial leaks while they drained my savings. Not anymore. With 3 precise clicks, I revoked the $800 recurring monthly transfer I had set up to cover Crystal's luxury SUV payment. I switched tabs to my American Express account, located the card Brenda carried in her purse, and hit Remove Authorized User. Finally, I canceled the shared family auto insurance plan billed directly to my debit card. In under 15 minutes, the financial IV drip holding their lives together was permanently severed. I closed the laptop, lay back against the stiff pillows, and for the first time in years, my chest did not feel like it was being crushed by a concrete block. The next morning, the fallout began. My phone lit up with 4 voicemails from Crystal, her voice shrill and panicked, screaming about a repossession warning email she had just received. A text from Brenda followed moments later, calling me a cold-blooded monster for abandoning my pregnant sister. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and ignored them. Later that afternoon, while checking my credit score on an app to secure a new apartment lease, a massive red warning banner flashed across the screen. My score had plummeted 150 points. The cause was a brand new home equity line of credit for $150,000, opened entirely under my Social Security number. My blood ran cold. I immediately pulled over into a diner parking lot, flipped open my laptop, and logged into my law firm's public records database using my paralegal credentials. I pulled the scanned deed of trust for the loan. There it was on the second page. My forged signature, officially stamped and authorized by a notary named Arthur Vance. Arthur was an old poker buddy of my late father's. Brenda had crossed the line from toxic parenting into federal fraud just to fund Travis's lavish lifestyle and keep Crystal from moving away. I did not scream. I opened a blank document and swiftly drafted a Federal Trade Commission identity theft affidavit, naming Arthur Vance as the fraudulent notary. I submitted the documents directly to the bank's fraud department, forcing an immediate and mandatory administrative freeze on the entire credit line. Their stolen money was now trapped. While taking a breath, I checked social media. Brenda had just posted a long bragging status on Facebook. She was showing off a lakeside villa she had supposedly rented for a small fortune to host Grandma Vera's 80th birthday party the following weekend. The post praised her own generosity, claiming she wanted nothing but the best for her mother. I stared at the photo of the rental property, and a slow, sharp smile spread across my face. Brenda had rented the property through a corporate management portal, signing a contract with Shoreline Holdings, LLC. She was completely unaware that Shoreline Holdings was my legal entity. That villa was Grandma Vera's childhood home, a house the family lost to foreclosure 2 decades ago, which I had secretly bought back and spent 3 years restoring with my own hands. Brenda was paying my company to host a party in my house. The trap was set perfectly. The day of the 80th birthday arrived with clear skies and a cool breeze coming off the lake. I parked down the road and walked up the gravel driveway. Dozens of relatives milled around the manicured lawn. Brenda stood on the front porch wearing a designer silk dress, practically glowing as she soaked up the praise from the aunts and uncles for providing such a lavish venue. She was in her element, playing the role of the perfect, wealthy matriarch. I stepped out from the crowd and walked up the wooden stairs. The chatter around the lawn slowly died down as people noticed me. Brenda's smile faltered, her eyes darting nervously toward Crystal, who was busy piling food onto a paper plate. I reached into my bag and pulled out the corporate property management receipt. I dropped it onto the glass patio table right in front of Brenda. "You did not rent this house." "Mom," I said, keeping my voice entirely level, "you paid my limited liability company." The silence on the lawn became absolute. You could hear the water lapping against the dock. Brenda's face lost all its color. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I turned away from her and knelt beside Grandma Vera's wheelchair. I handed the old woman a heavy, watermarked envelope. Inside was a life estate deed, officially filed with the county, permanently transferring the right of residency back to her. "Happy birthday, Nana," I said softly. "Your house is yours again." Grandma Vera traced the signature on the deed, tears spilling over her wrinkled cheeks. The crowd of relatives gasped, the whispers instantly turning into harsh judgments directed squarely at Brenda. Brenda's perfect matriarch mask shattered into a million pieces. She stammered, trying to weave a lie about a misunderstanding, but the cousins were already turning their backs. I walked off the porch, leaving Brenda drowning in the exact public humiliation she had always weaponized against me. A few days later, suffocating under the bank's active fraud investigation regarding the frozen $150,000 loan, a desperate Brenda played her final dirty card. She called Adult Protective Services and the local police department, falsely reporting that I had kidnapped Grandma Vera and was holding her hostage at the lake house to steal her property. 2 police cruisers crunched up the gravel driveway with their lights flashing. Brenda stood at the front gate, her arms crossed, a smug, victorious sneer on her face, waiting to see me dragged out in handcuffs. I stepped onto the porch holding a neatly organized manila folder. I handed the lead officer my medical power of attorney, the LLC operating agreement proving I own the property, and Vera's recent medical evaluations. Grandma Vera sat on the porch swing, sipping sweet tea. and perfectly lucidly explained to the officers that her daughter was lying out of spite. The officers turned around and walked straight back to the gate. They grabbed Brenda by the arms, spun her around, and snapped handcuffs onto her wrists for filing a false police report and criminal harassment. Brenda shrieked, demanding they arrest me, her voice echoing wildly across the empty lake. As the officer pushed Brenda toward the back of the cruiser, I walked down the driveway and leaned in close to her window. By the way, I whispered, Arthur Vance lost his notary license yesterday. The bank's federal investigators are searching his office right now, and he is blaming the entire forgery on you. Brenda's eyes went wide with pure, unadulterated terror. The cruiser door slammed shut. Later that week, the inevitable dominoes fell. Crystal stood sobbing in Brenda's driveway as a tow truck hauled her luxury SUV away. Travis, realizing the fraudulent bankroll was gone and a federal investigation was looming, packed his bags in the middle of the night and abandoned Crystal completely. The stolen money was gone. The enablers had scattered, and Brenda was facing a very real prison sentence for bank fraud. I stood on the back porch of the lake house, holding Grandma Vera's hand, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and violet. The silence was beautiful. The fallout from that month changed the entire trajectory of my life. When the dust settled, the judge sentenced Brenda to 4 years in state prison for the forged home equity line of credit, along with a mandate to pay full restitution to the bank. The community gossip was ruthless. The same church, friends, and relatives she had tried to impress at the party completely ostracized her. The facade she had spent her entire life building was reduced to a cautionary tale. A few months into her sentence, a wrinkled envelope arrived in my mailbox. It had the state correctional facility's stamp in the corner. I recognized Brenda's looping handwriting immediately. Inside, a 2-page letter dripped with the exact same manipulation she had always used. She claimed she was suffering, that she only committed the fraud because she loved the family, and that as her eldest daughter, it was my biblical duty to forgive her and put money on her commissary account. She even threw in a line about how Crystal was struggling as a single mother and needed my spare bedroom. I read the letter standing by my kitchen island. My pulse did not race. My hands did not shake. I simply walked over to the paper shredder, fed the pages into the teeth of the machine, and listened to the satisfying hum as her words were reduced to confetti. I never wrote back. I never sent a dime. That indifference was the most powerful response I could have ever delivered. It was the ultimate proof that her grip on my mind was permanently broken. My life now is remarkably peaceful. I spend my weekends at the lake house with Grandma Vera, tending to the garden we planted together. I have surrounded myself with a chosen family of friends and colleagues who respect my time, value my expertise, and never expect me to set myself on fire just to keep them warm. Looking back at the wreckage of my old life, I realized that the dynamic in my family was not unique. It is a textbook case of the glass child syndrome mixed with narcissistic manipulation. Independent, highly capable people are conditioned from a very young age to mistake their own bleeding for family duty. We are taught that if we do not hold the roof up, the house will crush everyone, and it will be our fault. Parasites use the concept of love as a hostage tactic, convincing you that your exhaustion is the only acceptable currency to buy their affection. Getting out of that toxic cycle taught me 3 fundamental rules about life and relationship, and I want to share them with you right now. Rule number 1, blood is nothing more than a biological accident. Loyalty, respect, and reciprocity are what actually make a family. You are under no cosmic obligation to pay the emotional or financial bills for people who view your kindness as a weakness. If someone treats you like an ATM, you are entirely allowed to cancel their debit card. Rule number 2, forgiveness does not mean granting someone re-entry into your life. Society pushes this toxic narrative that to truly forgive, you must reconcile. That is a lie. You can forgive someone for the ways they are broken. You can wish them healing and peace. And you can do it from a very safe, securely locked distance. You never have to give a snake a second chance to bite you just to prove you are a good person. Rule number 3, never fight a manipulator with tears, screaming matches, or long emotional texts explaining your pain. They do not care about your pain, they only care about winning the game. The best weapon against toxic entitlement is cold, hard boundaries, airtight legal paper trails, and stepping entirely out of their way so they can destroy themselves with their own actions. I want you to take a hard look at your own life right now. Look closely at the people holding keys to your time, your energy, and your wallet. Are they opening the door to check on you, to support you, and to bring value to your life? Or are they only opening that door when they need something from you? If you are exhausted from always being the strong one, always being the fixer, and always being the one who sacrifices, maybe it is time to stop holding the door open. Maybe it is time to change the locks entirely. Give yourself the key first. You deserve a life where your peace is protected. If this story resonated with you, or if it gave you the courage to finally draw a line in the sand with someone who has been taking advantage of you, share it with someone else who needs to hear it. Leave a comment down below and tell me where you are watching from. And hit that subscribe button to join a community of people who are taking their power back. Stay strong. Protect your peace. And I will see you in the next one. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there throwing your hands up, wondering, why on earth did she wait so long? Why did she pay that $800 car note month after month? Why didn't she cut off that credit card years ago? Let me stop you right there. She was not stupid, and she was not weak. What you just witnessed is a textbook example of the slot machine effect, known in clinical psychology as intermittent reinforcement. Toxic families are absolute masters at this game. They do not treat you terribly 100% of the time. Every once in a while, they drop a crumb of hope, a rare compliment, a quiet family dinner, a fleeting moment where you finally feel recognized. So you keep putting your coins into the machine. You keep paying their bills, pulling the lever, and enduring the disrespect, hoping that this time you will finally hit the jackpot of genuine, unconditional love. But the house always wins. Until you decide to walk out of the casino, that is where our protagonist gave us an absolute masterclass in financial self-defense. She stopped playing their emotional game and switched to a tactical one. Let's break down her street-smart moves. First, look at the audit strategy. Notice how she did not call her mother to argue about the car payment or the eviction. Scammers and manipulators thrive on emotional chaos and endless debate. Instead, she locked down her own vault. She logged into her banking portals and systematically revoked access. She cut the financial supply lines in silence. Toxic people hate boundaries, but they are entirely powerless against boundaries backed by swift action. Second, she focused on building the case. When she discovered that $150,000 fraudulent loan, she did not confront the villain to demand an explanation. Manipulators will just twist the truth. Instead, she pulled the official property deed She identified the corrupt notary. She immediately filed a Federal Trade Commission identity theft affidavit. She fought their emotional fiction with cold, hard documentation. You simply cannot gaslight a federal fraud report. Finally, she executed the buyout. She purchased her grandmother's house through a blind limited liability company and secured a medical power of attorney. She did not just run away from the problem, she built an impenetrable legal fortress. She invested her money into buying her ultimate freedom, and she threw a protective legal shield around the one family member who actually loved her. Here is the ultimate verdict. You cannot negotiate with people who view your boundaries as an insult. Sometimes the only way to win a toxic game is to refuse to play. Take your chips off the table and let them bankrupt themselves. Your self-worth is not measured by how much abuse you can endure. Have you ever had to financially cut off a toxic friend or family member to save yourself? Drop your story in the comments below, because your experience might be the exact wake-up call someone else needs to hear today. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective, hit that subscribe button for more real talk and survival strategies. Stay smart, protect your assets, and I will see you in the next video.